Fantastic. We'll move on to buying a vehicle. So, who are you purchasing from is the first question, and a very good one. One, in fact, we often forget to actually ask. Do you need to check the PPS register? And how do you get clear title? 3 big questions that you want to think about when actually buying vehicles. So in terms of the first question, who are you purchasing from? As a dealer, you will be purchasing a vehicle as inventory. Now, the important point about this is there are some consumer protection provisions in the Act which allow consumer buyers to get clear title free of security interests, and which mean that consumer buyers don't have to do PPS searches when they're buying from dealers. They can rely that the dealer has done the right thing to remove the security interest, and they will take the interest free of the security interests that financiers or others have registered when they're buying from a dealer who's promised to give them clear title to that vehicle. So, however, as a dealer, you're not able to take advantage of that. That exception and that protection that consumers get does not apply to you. So because of that, you need to do certain things, and in particular, and we're coming to it, searches to check your position. Private buyers, as I said, have the protection of that particular provision, and there are a couple of exceptions which apply. So where the secured party is in possession of the motor vehicle immediately before the time of sale, where the vehicle is bought at sale held by or on behalf of an execution creditor, or where the buyer buys the motor vehicle with actual or constructive knowledge that the sale constitutes a breach of a security agreement. So in particular, if there's some sort of fraud or something happening, the buyer's been involved in an attempt to effectively take free of a security interest involving other parties. So, well, do you need to search the PPS register? Yes. So dealers will need to ensure that a search is carried out at the time of purchase to ensure that the vehicle is not subject to any perfected security interests, otherwise you won't be getting clear title to the vehicle. And I recommend that you think about searching the serial number of the vehicle, but also think about searching the selling entity as well. Because sometimes there will be interest registered generally against the name of the selling entity that won't be able to be picked up by a search against a serial number.
So let's talk about this for a second. What we're actually thinking there is that I have to do 2 searches. I have to search the serial number, well they say serial number, we all think VIN, and I have to search the person, or sorry, search the entity that's selling me the car. So let's go through perhaps a little bit of logic. You do a search, you do it on the VIN, and it comes up, Mr. and Mrs. You're buying a car from Mr. and Mrs. Smith, it comes up an encumbrance to a lender. Fairly simple, straightforward. You do a search on Smith and Smith Proprietary Limited, and the VIN comes up and an encumbrance comes up. Fairly simple and straightforward. You do a search and there's no encumbrance on the VIN, but a company or an entity is selling you the car. The logic there is you should protect yourself against the entity doing something wrong. They may have a fixed and floating charge. Remember, we're searching all the databases now. The most likely scenario, possibly, is a guy standing in your dealership going, mate, I want to get rid of my wife's X5 and my A4. I hate driving it anyway, but I want to get rid of my A4. They're only 4 months old. Could he be stripping assets out of a company because they are a fixed and floating charge? Now, they're not perfected, right? They're not on searchable by serial number, but they're there. So the logical flow is to look at the dynamic of your transaction. But when you are buying something from an entity, there is now potential for that entity to have no right, transfer that to a bad consequence for you, for that asset. Should you search every Mr. and Mrs. Smith? Phil's going to say yes. Okay?
Because I'm a cautious guy.
Okay. Should you search entities when you can't find the vehicle? Oh, absolutely. And you need the exact name. A full stop makes a difference. So if it's, you know, please me proprietary limited and you spell it wrong, then your search is not relevant. So it has to be exact. So you're probably going to want to see the purchase papers, when they bought the car. You're definitely going to want to see rego papers. And it's also a good time to bring up, and based on the number of administration people in this room, this is not going to welcome this statement, get your VINs right. If you don't get your VINs right, you're going to get huge trouble. And you can see dealer principals faced with all the consequences, and they're going to be saying, well, who took the VIN down wrong? And the old defence was, well, salesmen never do VINs right. It's not going to work. Okay? The VIN has to be right. It's VIN based. There's no rego, there's no engine. It's just one 17-digit number. If your appraisal systems are slack now, someone will pay a consequence.
Yep. Yep. Okay, so how do you get clear title? Well, firstly, if a search of the register shows that someone's got a registered security interest, then you'll need to ascertain what needs to be done to obtain clear title. So, you know, potentially there might be some interests that allow the interest to be sold without consent of the financier or just a consent from the financier. That will be sufficient, but you're going to have to look into that. In some cases, outright removal will actually be necessary, and that will often be the case. You need to seek assurance that once any money is received by any financier, that there will be a release of that interest. That could occur by processing simultaneously a release with your transaction or some form of written assurance that your legal advice suggests is adequate to protect you. But that's something that you'll need to be comfortable of, that you're not going to have to pay twice or more than twice because a financier wants more money after the day of the transaction and won't release their interest. And you need to think about any transitional interest. So during this 2-year transitional period after the commencement of the regime, there will be things such as retention of title arrangements that will enjoy some temporary protection. You just need to be aware of that and consider those as well. So there are 3 things that are very important for you to do in order to try and ensure that you get clear title.
Just on the transitional side of it, the industry at the moment is used to saying, give me the rego papers, I'll do a rev search. We're all comfortable. We think we're 100% protected. And generally we are. No longer the case. A little bit deeper in regards to, do you have the paperwork from when you purchased it? Right? What name is it in? There's going to be some logic. I know we're going to have to push this through the F&I department, which is an episode in itself, but those transitional interests are quite important too.
They certainly are. Chris, did you want to speak to this one?
Yes.
Yep.
Let's talk about buying a vehicle. We have Tom and we have a dealership. Right, selling the Ferrari to the purchasing dealership. Search the register. If you have one takeout from this today, plan to always search everything you buy, regardless of who you buy it off. And if I can't convince you of that, don't ring me when it goes south. Okay? You must do a search. You should consider searching the selling entity. Exact name of the entity. We're not talking about Bill and Mary Smith here particularly. Okay? It's unlikely that Bill and Mary Smith have a fixed and floating charge. So you search the selling entity and you search Tom. Okay? That's not 3. That's 2 searches. So if Tom is sitting there and he has a company name, one or either or both. Oops, sorry, going the wrong way. That's no different, really, to the way Revs is now, excepting we've added entities into it. I don't know a dealer that searches the company register now, searches asset, but you will be able to with this database. If there's a registered, make sure you get written confirmation that the security will be removed. Again, the lenders aren't exactly clear yet. There is potential for them to say, no, I won't pay the car out because he owes me on the mortgage, or I won't pay the car out because I've got his credit card. And, you know, we all know that lenders over-secure. Search the register at time of actual purchase. That would be 2 you're doing now then. So if he's waiting 4 months for his Prado, what's he done in that 4 months? Well, not so much these days, the stock's back up, but so when you do the deal and when you deliver, protecting yourself against what they may have done or what has happened since. All right? What a rev certificate did was anything registered after you got the certificate was wiped. That's gone.
Thanks. Thanks, Chris. All right, so best practice, search the PPS register against serial number, VIN, and name of selling entity. And ensure you can obtain clear title.